r/AITA grandma said, figure it out, about organ donation, so I ignored her final wish. AITA for refusing to donate my kidney to my dying grandmother after she told me to figure it out about medical school. The phone call came at 3 a.m. during my night shift at the hospital. I was checking vitals on a patient when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Is this Sarah Martinez? The voice was professional, clinical. This is Dr. Reynolds from Mercy General. I'm calling about your grandmother, Eleanor Martinez. She's been admitted to our renal unit and we need to discuss something urgent with you. I stepped into the hallway, my scrubs rustling. What's wrong with her? Her kidneys are failing. She needs a transplant, and according to our records, you're listed as her closest living relative. We'd like you to come in for compatibility testing as soon as possible. I almost laughed. The irony was so thick I could taste it. I'll be there tomorrow, I said, hanging up. But I wasn't laughing as I drove to Mercy General after my shift ended. I was thinking about 7 years ago, when I was 21 and desperate. When I'd sat in Grandma Eleanor's pristine living room, surrounded by her expensive furniture and oil paintings, begging for help with medical school tuition. Grandma, please. I'm $80,000 short. The loans won't cover everything, and I've applied for every scholarship I can find. My voice had cracked with desperation. I know you have the money. This is my dream. I want to save lives. She'd looked at me over her reading glasses, her face cold as marble. Eleanor Martinez, widow of a successful real estate developer, sitting in her paid-off $1 million home, wearing jewelry worth more than my yearly salary. Sarah, dear, you need to learn that life doesn't hand you things on a silver platter. I worked hard for my money, and your grandfather worked hard for this comfortable life. If you want to be a doctor so badly, you'll figure it out. Figure it out. Those words had haunted me for years. I'd figured it out, all right. I'd taken extra loans that buried me in debt. I'd worked 3 jobs while studying. I'd lived on ramen and hope. I'd switched from pre-med to nursing because it was all I could afford. I became an RN instead of the doctor I'd dreamed of being, and I was damn good at it. But every month when I made those crushing loan payments, I remembered her words. Figure it out. Now, walking through the familiar hospital corridors toward the renal unit, I wondered what Dr. Reynolds would tell me. Would I be a match? Would the woman who'd watched me struggle and suffer without lifting a finger now need me to literally give her a piece of myself to survive? The cruel symmetry wasn't lost on me. Here I was, a nurse who dedicated her life to healing others despite my grandmother's refusal to invest in my future, potentially holding her life in my hands. Or rather, in my kidney. I found Dr. Reynolds in the consultation room, a tired-looking man in his 50s with kind eyes. He gestured for me to sit. Thank you for coming so quickly. I'll be direct with you, Miss Martinez. Your grandmother's condition is critical. She needs a kidney transplant within the next few months, or... He paused delicately. Or she'll die, I finished. Yes. We've run preliminary screenings, and you appear to be an excellent potential match. But I need to ask you, are you willing to undergo the testing process? Kidney donation is a serious procedure with risks, and I want to make sure you understand what you'd be considering. I stared at him, thinking about those words again. Figure it out. I understand the risks, I told Dr. Reynolds. But I need to see her first. Before I agree to any testing. He nodded and led me down the hall to room 314. Nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. Eleanor Martinez, the woman who'd always been impeccably dressed and rigidly composed, lay connected to machines that beeped and hummed around her. Her skin had a grayish pallor, and her once sharp eyes were clouded with medication and pain. She looked small. Fragile. Human. Sarah. Her voice was a whisper. You came. I pulled up a chair, maintaining my distance. Dr. Reynolds called me. He says you need a kidney. Her face crumpled with what might have been relief. The doctors say you might be a match. I know this is a lot to ask, sweetheart, but you're all I have left. Your cousin Michael moved to Australia, and your Aunt Patricia. She trailed off. What about Aunt Patricia? She was tested. Not compatible. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears I'd never seen before. Sarah, I'm scared. I don't want to die. I watched her cry, and felt nothing. No surge of sympathy. No granddaughter's instinct to comfort. Just a cold, analytical assessment of the situation, the way I'd learned to evaluate patients in crisis. The testing process will take a few weeks, I said carefully. Blood work, psychological evaluation, surgical clearance. You'll do it? Hope flickered in her voice. I'll do the testing. Then I'll make my decision. After leaving her room, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at the hospital entrance. My phone rang, my mom. Sarah, honey, I just heard about Grandma Eleanor. Patricia called me. She says you're being tested as a donor. Word travels fast. Sweetheart, I know things have been complicated between you two. But this could be your chance to heal that relationship. She's family. I almost told her everything right then. About the medical school rejection. About the debt that still kept me awake at night. About how I'd had to give up my dream of becoming a doctor because her precious mother couldn't spare pocket change to help her only granddaughter. Instead, I said, I'll think about it, Mom. She's changed, you know. Since your grandfather died, she's been different. Lonelier. I think she regrets some of her choices. After hanging up, I drove home to my small apartment, the same cramped place I'd lived in for 3 years because my loan payments ate up most of my income. I pulled out my laptop and did something I probably shouldn't have. I looked up Eleanor's financial records. As her emergency contact, I had access to her medical files, which included insurance information. What I saw made my blood pressure spike. Her net worth was listed at $2.8 million. In 7 years, while I'd been scraping by, she'd actually gotten wealthier. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the psychological evaluation Dr. Reynolds had mentioned. They'd ask me why I wanted to donate. They'd want to ensure I wasn't being coerced, that my motivations were pure. What would I tell them? That I was doing it out of love. Out of family obligation. Or would I tell them the truth, that I was considering saving the life of someone who'd watched me drown when she could have easily thrown me a rope? Someone who told me to figure it out when I'd needed her most? The irony was almost poetic. She'd refused to invest in my future as a healer, and now her life depended on my willingness to heal her. Figure it out, I thought, staring at the ceiling. Now it's your turn to figure it out, Grandma. The testing began 3 days later. I sat in the pre-donation clinic at 7 a.m., fasting blood draw scheduled first thing. The phlebotomist, a woman named Janet who I'd worked with on occasion, smiled warmly as she prepared the vials. Heard you're being a hero for your grandma, she said, tying the tourniquet around my arm. That's really something, Sarah. Not everyone would step up like this. I watched my blood fill tube after tube, complete metabolic panel, tissue typing, cross-matching, infectious disease screening. Just doing what family does, I replied, the words tasting like ash. Still. My sister needed a kidney 2 years ago, and you'd be amazed how many family members suddenly got real busy. She labeled the last vial. Your grandma's lucky to have you. Lucky. Right. After the blood draw, I had my first meeting with Dr. Patricia Vance, the transplant psychologist. Her office was designed to be calming, soft colors, comfortable chairs, tissues strategically placed. I'd been through enough therapy myself to recognize the setup. Sarah, I understand you're considering kidney donation for your grandmother. This is obviously a significant decision. Can you tell me what's motivating you to pursue this? I'd rehearsed this answer. She's family. She raised me after my parents divorced when I was young. Technically true, I'd spent summers at her house. I became a nurse because I want to help people. This feels like a natural extension of that. Dr. Vance made notes. How would you describe your relationship with your grandmother? Complicated. At least I could be honest about that. We haven't been as close in recent years. Life gets busy. Any financial arrangements or pressures influencing your decision? A laugh nearly escaped. Financial pressures. If only she knew. No. Nothing like that. What concerns, if any, do you have about the procedure? The standard surgical risks. Recovery time, I'll need to arrange coverage at work. But I understand the medical aspects pretty well given my background. After an hour of careful questions and measured answers, Dr. Vance scheduled a follow-up. The psychological evaluation is ongoing, Sarah. We'll meet again once your medical clearance is complete. Walking out, I felt like I was living a double life. Professional, compassionate Sarah who was considering donating an organ to save her grandmother. And the other Sarah, the one who lay awake at night calculating exactly how much interest I paid on those medical school loans Eleanor could have covered without blinking. My phone buzzed with a text from my cousin Michael in Sydney, asterisk heard about Gran. Mum told me you're getting tested. Thank God someone can help her. I feel terrible being so far away, asterisk. I stared at the message. Michael, who'd inherited $50,000 from our grandfather for his architecture degree. Michael, who'd never had to choose between his dreams and financial reality. Of course he felt terrible from his comfortable distance. That afternoon, I stopped by Eleanor's room during my break. She was awake, looking slightly better after a dialysis session. Sarah. How did the testing go? Fine. Blood work is processing. More tests scheduled over the next 2 weeks. She grabbed my hand with surprising strength. I can't tell you how much this means to me. I know I haven't always been. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye. What do you mean? She looked uncomfortable. I've been thinking about things. Choices I made. Maybe I was too hard on you sometimes. My pulse quickened. Was she finally going to acknowledge it? Apologize? I just wanted you to be strong. Independent. I didn't want to make things too easy for you. Too easy. I pulled my hand away slowly. Right. Character building. Exactly. And look how well you turned out. You're saving lives every day. She still didn't get it. Even now, facing her own mortality, she couldn't admit that her character building had derailed my entire life plan. I should get back to work, I said, standing. Sarah. After this is over, after the surgery, maybe we could spend more time together. I'd like that. I paused at the door. Let's just focus on getting through the testing first, Grandma. Figure it out, I thought as I walked away. We'll see how much you want to spend time together when you find out what I figured out. The compatibility results came back on a Thursday. Dr. Reynolds called me into his office with an expression I couldn't quite read. Sarah, I have the preliminary results from your testing. He slid a folder across his desk. You're not just a match, you're a perfect match. 6 out of 6 HLA markers, blood type compatible, excellent kidney function. In 20 years of transplant medicine, I've rarely seen compatibility this strong between non-twin relatives. Perfect. Of course I was. What does that mean for timing? We could schedule surgery within 2 weeks if you decide to proceed. Your grandmother's condition has stabilized somewhat, but every day we wait increases the risks. He leaned forward. I have to ask, how are you feeling about moving forward? I stared at the test results. Perfect compatibility. Like the universe was playing some cosmic joke. I need to think about it. Of course. But Sarah, I want you to know that what you're considering is extraordinary. Your grandmother is lucky to have someone willing to make this sacrifice. Sacrifice. The word followed me home like a shadow. That evening, my mother called. Patricia told me the test results were good. Oh honey, I'm so proud of you. Grandma Eleanor must be over the moon. Mom, can I ask you something? About when I was applying to medical school. A pause. What about it? Did you ever ask Grandma Eleanor to help? Did you know how much I was struggling? Another pause, longer this time. Sarah, your grandmother has always been particular about money. She believes in people earning their way. I mentioned you were having some financial difficulties, but... You mentioned it. My voice rose. Mom, I was drowning. I came this close to giving up everything I'd worked for. I know, sweetheart, and I'm sorry I couldn't help more. You know your father and I were barely keeping our heads above water after the divorce. But you made it work. You became a nurse, and you're amazing at it. That wasn't the point. I was standing now, pacing my small living room. I wanted to be a doctor. I had the grades, the MCAT scores, everything except the money. Honey, why are you bringing this up now? Because I'm holding her life in my hands, I thought. Because she told me to figure it out, and now I have. Never mind. Never mind. The next morning, I was assigned to the renal unit. Hospital politics at work. Dr. Reynolds probably thought it would be nice for me to be close to Eleanor during the decision process. Instead, it felt like torture. I watched other families navigate the same crisis. In room 302, a construction worker's 3 adult children were all getting tested, arguing over who got to donate. Dad gave us everything, I heard his daughter say. This is the least we can do. In room 318, a teenager was recovering from donating to her mother. The girl's boyfriend sat beside her bed, holding her hand. You're so brave, he kept saying. Your mom is going to be okay because of you. Brave. Was I brave for considering it, or cowardly for my real motivations? Around noon, I ran into Dr. Vance in the cafeteria. Sarah, perfect timing. I wanted to follow up on our session. How are you processing the compatibility results? I sat across from her, picking at a sandwich I couldn't taste. It's a lot to take in. The perfect match puts additional pressure on you, I imagine. Sometimes when the medical compatibility is so strong, families feel like the decision is already made for them. Something like that. I want you to remember that being a perfect match doesn't create an obligation. Your autonomy as a potential donor is absolute. No one can force you to proceed, regardless of compatibility. I looked up at her. What if someone's reasons for donating aren't pure? What do you mean? What if they're doing it for complicated reasons? Guilt, obligation, family pressure. Dr. Vance set down her coffee. Those are normal feelings, Sarah. Most organ donation happens within families, and family relationships are always complex. We're not looking for saints, we're looking for people making informed, voluntary decisions. And if someone had unresolved issues with the recipient, that's exactly why we have this evaluation process. Do you want to talk about what's concerning you? I almost told her everything right then. The words were right there, ready to spill out. But instead, I shook my head. Just trying to work through everything. We have time, Sarah. Don't let anyone rush you into a decision you're not ready for. Walking back to the unit, I passed Eleanor's room. Through the window, I could see her sitting up, looking more alert than she had in days. She was on the phone, and even though I couldn't hear the words, her posture looked animated, excited. Probably telling someone about the perfect match. About how her granddaughter was going to save her life. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, Sarah, this is Patricia. Mom told me about the test results. I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. Our family is lucky to have you, Lucky. There was that word again. I stood in the hallway, watching Eleanor through the glass, and felt something cold settle in my chest. She looked so hopeful, so confident that everything would work out in her favor. Just like she'd always expected. Figure it out, I thought, turning away from her window. Let's see how well you can figure this one out, Grandma. The second psychological evaluation was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Dr. Vance's office felt smaller this time, the calming decor more suffocating than soothing. I'd spent the weekend rehearsing answers, but sitting across from her again, I felt exposed. Sarah, you seem more tense today. How has the week been since we got the compatibility results? Overwhelming. Everyone's acting like it's a done deal now. I shifted in my chair. The perfect match thing, it feels like a lot of pressure. Tell me about that pressure. Where is it coming from? Family, mostly. My mom keeps calling, talking about how proud she is. My aunt sent flowers to my apartment with a card thanking me for giving Eleanor her life back. Even my cousin in Australia has been texting. I paused. And my grandmother, she looks at me like I'm already her savior. Dr. Vance made notes. How does that make you feel? The honest answer, that it made me feel powerful in a way that scared me, probably wasn't what she wanted to hear. Trapped, I guess. Like the decision's been made for me. Has anyone explicitly pressured you to proceed? Not in so many words. But when everyone assumes you're going to do it, saying no becomes. I trailed off, searching for the right words. It becomes harder to explain. What would you need to explain? The question hung in the air. What would I tell them? That I was considering letting my grandmother die because she wouldn't pay for my education 7 years ago. That I wanted her to experience the same helplessness she'd forced me to feel. I don't know, I said finally. Maybe that's the problem. Dr. Vance leaned forward slightly. Sarah, in our last session, you mentioned unresolved issues. Sometimes family conflicts can actually become more significant when we're facing life or death decisions. It might help to talk about what's causing you to feel conflicted. I stared at the tissues on her side table, perfectly arranged and waiting for tears that weren't coming. My grandmother and I have different philosophies about helping family. Can you elaborate on that? She believes in tough love. Making people figure things out on their own. Building character through struggle. The words tasted bitter. I used to think that was cruel. Now I'm wondering if maybe she was right. What makes you say that? Well, if struggling builds character, then maybe she needs to experience some struggle of her own. Maybe I'd be robbing her of an important growth opportunity by making this too easy. Dr. Vance's pen stopped moving. She looked at me more intently. Sarah, that sounds like you might be angry with your grandmother about something specific. My heart rate picked up. I'd said too much. Everyone gets angry with their grandparents sometimes. Of course. But anger can complicate medical decisions. If you're considering donation partly to resolve feelings of resentment, or conversely, if you're hesitant because of unresolved anger, we need to explore that. What if it's both? The words slipped out before I could stop them. What do you mean? I felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff. One more step and everything would come spilling out, the medical school rejection, the debt, the years of resentment I'd carefully buried under professional competence and family obligation. I just mean that family relationships are complicated. Sometimes you love someone and resent them at the same time. Dr. Vance nodded slowly. That's very honest. And very human. But Sarah, I need to ask you directly, do you feel like donating your kidney would be the right decision for you, regardless of external pressures or expectations? The question I'd been dreading. Because the truthful answer was that I didn't know anymore. Part of me wanted to be the bigger person, to save her life and prove I was nothing like her. But a darker part, the part that still woke up some nights calculating loan payments, wanted to watch her face when I told her no. Wanted to see her realize that her own words were coming back to destroy her. I need more time, I said. Of course. But Sarah, I want you to consider something. Whatever decision you make, you'll have to live with it forever. Make sure it's one you can defend to yourself, not just to your family. Walking out of her office, I felt more confused than ever. In the elevator, my phone rang, Eleanor's room number on the display. Hello. Sarah. Her voice was weak, frightened. Can you come up here? Something's happened. I found Eleanor's room in chaos. Two nurses I didn't recognize were adjusting her 4 lines while Dr. Reynolds checked her chart with a grim expression. Eleanor looked smaller than ever against the white sheets, her skin an alarming shade of yellow. What happened? I asked Dr. Reynolds, slipping into my professional mode. Her numbers crashed overnight. Creatinine is through the roof, and she's showing signs of uremic toxicity. He pulled me aside, lowering his voice. Sarah, I need to be frank with you. We're looking at days, not weeks now. If we're going to do this surgery, it needs to happen immediately. Days. The word hit me like a physical blow. How immediately? This weekend. Saturday, if possible. I know this accelerates everything, and I'm sorry to put this pressure on you, but... Dr. Reynolds. Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. Is Sarah here? I approached her bed slowly. Her eyes, once sharp enough to cut glass, were cloudy and unfocused. I'm here, Grandma. The doctors say we need to hurry now. Her hand found mine, her grip surprisingly desperate. Please tell me you've decided. Please tell me you're going to help me. I stared down at her, this woman who had loomed so large in my life, who had seemed invincible in her coldness. Now she was just afraid and dying and looking at me like I was her only salvation. The surgery would be Saturday. I asked Dr. Reynolds. If you consent, yes. We've already blocked the your time, just in case. Just in case. They'd been so confident I'd say yes. I need to call my supervisor about time off, I said, not committing to anything. Eleanor's face crumpled with relief. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you so much. I know this is a big sacrifice, but after the surgery, I promise things will be different between us. I want to make things right. Make things right. Now, when she needed something from me, she wanted to make things right. I spent my lunch break in the hospital chapel, staring at the simple wooden cross on the wall. I wasn't particularly religious, but something about the quiet space helped me think. A few other people sat in scattered pews, probably other families facing impossible decisions. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother, *. Patricia told me about Eleanor's decline. I'm driving down tonight. We need to talk before the surgery, *. Then another from Michael, * Mum called. Flying back immediately. Should be there Thursday. Can't believe how close we came to losing her, *. And another from my supervisor, *. Heard about your family emergency. Take all the time you need. We'll cover your shifts, *. Everyone was mobilizing, rallying around Eleanor's crisis. The same Eleanor who had watched me struggle alone 7 years ago and told me to figure it out. That evening, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I drove to Eleanor's house, the same pristine living room where she delivered her cold verdict about my future. I still had a key from years ago, when I used to check on the place during her vacations. The house felt like a mausoleum. Everything exactly as she'd left it, from the expensive artwork to the fresh flowers her housekeeper still arranged weekly. I walked through the rooms, remembering every detail of that awful conversation. In her study, I found her financial statement spread across the desk, probably hastily reviewed before her hospitalization. Bank balances, investment accounts, property values. The numbers were staggering. In the 7 years since my medical school rejection, her wealth had grown to over $3 million. $3 million. While I'd eaten ramen and worked 3 jobs and watched my dreams crumble. I sat in her leather desk chair and opened her laptop. Her email was still logged in, and curiosity got the better of me. Recent messages from her attorney about updating her will. Messages from her financial advisor about charitable donations she was considering. Charitable donations. She was planning to give money to strangers while I was still drowning in debt from the dreams she'd refused to support. One email made me stop breathing. It was from 3 months ago, to her attorney. James, I've been thinking about Sarah's situation with those medical school loans. She's still struggling financially. Patricia mentioned she's been working extra shifts to make ends meet. I'm starting to wonder if I was too harsh years ago. Maybe we should discuss setting up some kind of trust or gift to help her out. I don't want to enable dependency, but perhaps I overcorrected. Let's talk about this when you have time, *. She'd known. For months, she'd known I was still struggling, and she'd been considering helping. But she'd never reached out, never mentioned it, never actually done anything about her belated conscience. Sitting in her chair, surrounded by her wealth and comfort, I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Figure it out, I thought. You had months to figure out how to make amends, and you chose to do nothing. Now it's my turn to figure it out. And I finally knew exactly what my decision would be. I drove straight from Eleanor's house to the hospital, my hands shaking with rage and a terrible clarity. The email kept replaying in my mind. 3 months she'd been considering helping me while I worked myself to exhaustion. 3 months of thinking about making amends while doing absolutely nothing about it. The night shift was just starting when I badged into the building. I found Dr. Reynolds in his office, looking exhausted as he reviewed surgical schedules. Sarah. I wasn't expecting to see you tonight. How are you holding up? I need to talk to you about Saturday's surgery. He gestured for me to sit, his expression cautiously hopeful. Have you made your decision? I have some questions first. About Eleanor's prognosis if the surgery doesn't happen. His face grew serious. Sarah, I don't want to pressure you, but given her rapid decline today, I'm not asking for pressure. I'm asking for medical facts. If I don't donate, how long does she have? Dr. Reynolds was quiet for a long moment. Days to weeks. Her kidney function is essentially zero now. Even with aggressive dialysis, we're looking at multiple organ failure soon. And her quality of life during that time? It would be difficult. Increasing confusion, fluid retention, eventually coma. He leaned forward. Sarah, these aren't pleasant questions to be asking about your grandmother. I'm a nurse, Dr. Reynolds. I need to understand exactly what we're talking about. Of course. He pulled out her chart. Without transplant, Eleanor will die. With transplant, assuming no complications, she could have years of good quality life ahead of her. Years. Years she could have used to actually help me instead of just thinking about it. Years she could have spent being the grandmother I'd needed instead of the cold stranger who'd watched me drown. What about the surgical risks for me? Standard for laparoscopic nephrectomy. Less than 1% mortality risk, small chance of complications. You're young and healthy, you'd recover completely. And if there were complications? His expression grew concerned. Sarah, are you having second thoughts? Because if you're not completely committed, I'm trying to make an informed decision. My voice came out sharper than intended. Isn't that what you want? Of course. But your questions tonight seem different. More clinical. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. I should take this. Sarah, thank God. Mom's voice was thick with tears. I'm at the hospital now. I went straight to Eleanor's room, and honey, she looked so weak. But she kept asking about you, asking if you'd confirmed the surgery. What did you tell her? That you were still finalizing details with the doctors. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and please don't be angry. Are you having doubts about this? The question hung in the air. Through Dr. Reynolds' office window, I could see the renal unit where Eleanor lay dying, probably telling every nurse who'd listen about her wonderful granddaughter who was going to save her life. Why would you ask that? Because I know you, sweetheart. And I know that things between you and Eleanor have been strained. I also know that you're the most compassionate person I've ever met, which makes this question even harder to ask. What question? Are you doing this because you want to save her, or because you feel like you have to? I closed my eyes. Does it matter? Oh, honey. Of course it matters. If you're not doing this for the right reasons. What are the right reasons, Mom? I stood up, pacing Dr. Reynolds' small office while he pretended not to listen. Love. Family obligation. Guilt. What makes one reason more right than another? Sarah, you're scaring me. What's going on? What was going on? I was finally seeing everything clearly. The years of resentment, the careful way my family had always made excuses for Eleanor's coldness, the assumption that I would naturally sacrifice my body to save someone who'd never sacrificed anything for me. I have to go, Mom. I'll call you later. Wait, Sarah, the surgery is in 2 days. We need to know. I hung up and turned back to Dr. Reynolds, who was watching me with obvious concern. I think we should postpone the psychological evaluation until tomorrow, he said carefully. You seem to be processing a lot right now. Actually, I think I'm done processing. I sat back down, feeling strangely calm. Dr. Reynolds, I need you to understand something. Whatever decision I make, I need everyone to respect it. No guilt trips, no last-minute emotional appeals, no family pressure. Of course. But Sarah. No buts. This is my body, my choice, my consequence to live with. Right? Absolutely. But as your doctor, I'm concerned about your emotional state. Major medical decisions shouldn't be made when you're feeling. Feeling what? Clear-headed. Finally honest about my motivations. I met his eyes. Dr. Reynolds, what would you do if someone had refused to help you when you desperately needed it, then expected you to risk your life to help them? The question seemed to catch him off guard. That's a very specific hypothetical. Not hypothetical at all. I stood to leave. I'll have my final decision for you tomorrow morning. Walking through the hospital corridors, I felt like I was moving through a different world. Everything looked the same, the familiar beeping of monitors, the sterile smell of disinfectant, the quiet conversations between families facing their own crises, but something fundamental had shifted inside me. I stopped outside Eleanor's room one last time. She was asleep, finally looking peaceful despite the machines keeping her alive. A nurse I didn't recognize was adjusting her for. Are you family? The nurse asked quietly. Her granddaughter. Oh, you must be Sarah. She talks about you constantly. Says you're going to be her donor. What a wonderful thing you're doing. Wonderful. I stared at Eleanor's sleeping face, remembering every detail of our last real conversation 7 years ago. Her dismissive tone, her cold eyes, her complete indifference to my desperation. Figure it out, I thought. Tomorrow you'll find out exactly what I figured out. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Eleanor's face in that hospital bed, heard my mother's worried voice, felt the weight of everyone's expectations pressing down on me like a physical force. At 6 a.m., I gave up pretending to rest and drove to the hospital early. I needed to see Eleanor one more time before I made my final decision, not as her potential savior, but as someone finally ready to speak the truth. I found her awake, looking more alert than she had in days. The morning dialysis had helped, giving her a temporary reprieve that made the illusion of hope seem almost real. Sarah. Her face lit up when she saw me. I was hoping you'd come early. I couldn't sleep, thinking about tomorrow. Tomorrow. She was so certain the surgery was happening. I pulled the visitor's chair close to her bed. Grandma, I need to talk to you about something important. Of course, sweetheart. Is it about the surgery? Dr. Reynolds said everything looks good for tomorrow afternoon. It's about medical school. The change in her expression was immediate. Her face went carefully blank, the same mask she'd worn 7 years ago. Medical school. Sarah, that was a long time ago. Why bring that up now? Because I need to understand something. When I came to you for help, desperate and scared about my future, do you remember what you told me? She shifted uncomfortably in the hospital bed. Sarah, I don't think this is the time. You told me to figure it out. That life doesn't hand you things on a silver platter. That if I wanted something badly enough, I'd find a way. I was trying to teach you independence. You were trying to avoid helping me. My voice stayed level, clinical. You had millions of dollars sitting in investment accounts while I was eating 1 meal a day and working myself sick to try to afford my dreams. Eleanor's hands twisted the hospital blanket. You don't understand. I came from nothing. My parents never helped me with anything. I learned that struggle makes you stronger. Strong enough to watch your granddaughter give up becoming a doctor because you couldn't be bothered to write a check. You became a nurse. You're helping people. That wasn't my choice. The words came out louder than I intended. A nurse glanced through the window, and I lowered my voice. That was plan B, plan C, actually. My dreams died in your living room that day. Eleanor was crying now, tears streaming down her yellowed cheeks. Sarah, please. I know I made mistakes. I've been thinking about it, about ways to help you now. I know about the email to your lawyer. She went very still. What email? 3 months ago. You told James you were considering helping me with my loans. You said maybe you'd been too harsh. I leaned forward. But you never actually did anything about it, did you? Her silence was answer enough. 3 months you spent considering while I worked double shifts to make my loan payments. 3 months of thinking about making amends while doing absolutely nothing. I was going to, after I got out of the hospital. You were going to wait until it was convenient for you. Just like everything else. I stood up, feeling strangely calm. Well, Grandma, I have some news for you. I've been thinking too. About your advice, about figuring things out. Her eyes widened with what might have been the first real fear I'd ever seen there. Sarah, what are you saying? I'm saying I finally understand what you taught me. That sometimes people have to face their problems alone. That struggle builds character. I moved toward the door. So I'm going to let you figure this one out on your own. Sarah, no, please. But I was already walking away, her desperate calls following me down the hallway like ghosts. The hospital corridor felt endless as I walked away from Eleanor's room, her voice growing fainter behind me. Sarah, please come back. We need to talk about this. I didn't stop. I couldn't. If I turned around and saw her face, the fear, the desperation, I might crack. Might let myself forget the email that proved she'd known I was struggling and chosen to do nothing. Sarah. A different voice called out. I turned to see my mother hurrying down the hallway, still in yesterday's clothes, her hair disheveled from sleeping in a hospital chair. Honey, what's wrong? I heard shouting from Eleanor's room. We had a conversation that was 7 years overdue. Mom grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. What does that mean? Sarah, the surgery is tomorrow. Please tell me you're not. I'm not doing it. The words hung in the air between us like a physical barrier. Mom's face went through a series of expressions, confusion, disbelief, horror. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Sarah Elizabeth Martinez, your grandmother is dying. You're the only person who can save her, and you're going to let her die over some old grudge. Old grudge. As if my crushed dreams were just petty resentment. Mom, did you know she was considering helping me with my loans 3 months ago? The slight shift in Mom's expression told me everything. How did you? You knew. I stared at her. You knew she was thinking about it, and you never told me. I didn't want to get your hopes up. You know how she was, about these things. She needed to come to the decision herself. While I worked myself into the ground. Sarah, listen to me. Mom's voice took on the tone she'd used when I was a child having a tantrum. Whatever happened in the past, this is about life and death now. You can't let someone die because you're angry about college tuition. Watch me. The words came out colder than I intended, and Mom actually stepped back as if I'd slapped her. I don't know who you are right now, she whispered. This isn't the daughter I raised. You raised me to help people who couldn't help themselves. Eleanor could help herself, she just chose not to. For 7 years. She's family. Family doesn't let family drown when they have a life preserver. I pulled out my phone. I need to call Dar. Reynolds. Sarah, wait, Mom's voice cracked. What if we could fix the money situation? After the surgery, I could talk to her about paying off your loans, maybe setting up something for your future. You think this is about money? I almost laughed. Mom, this is about her telling me to figure it out and then expecting me to save her when she couldn't figure it out herself. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael, asterisk just landed. Coming straight to hospital. Can't wait to thank you for what you're doing, asterisk. Then another from Aunt Patricia, asterisk Sarah, bless you. You're an angel. Mom always said you were special, asterisk. Then my supervisor, asterisk take as much time as you need for recovery. So proud of you, asterisk. Everyone's so certain I was going to be the hero. Everyone except Eleanor, who was finally learning what it felt like when the person you needed most left you to figure it out alone. I have to go, I told Mom, heading toward the elevators. Where are you going? To find Dr. Reynolds. To officially withdraw from the donor program. Sarah, please, think about this. Really think. Can you live with yourself if she dies? I stopped at the elevator and turned back to face her. Mom looked older somehow, worn down by the weight of holding our fractured family together. The question isn't whether I can live with her dying, Mom. The question is whether I can live with saving someone who watched me suffer and felt nothing. The elevator doors opened. Turns out, I figured it out. As the doors closed between us, I saw Mom collapse into one of the waiting room chairs, her face in her hands. Through the small window, I caught a glimpse of Eleanor's room, where nurses were responding to some kind of alarm. For just a moment, doubt flickered through me. Then I remembered the email, the months of consideration, while I struggled, and pressed the button for Dr. Reynolds' floor. Time to make this official. I found Dr. Reynolds in the pre-surgical conference room, reviewing Eleanor's updated labs with the surgical team. When he saw me through the glass door, his expression immediately shifted from professional focus to concern. Sarah, good morning. I was just going over your grandmother's numbers with the team. Her condition has deteriorated overnight, but we're still on track for this afternoon if. I need to speak with you privately. The surgical team exchanged glances as Dr. Reynolds dismissed them. When we were alone, he gestured for me to sit, but I remained standing. Dr. Reynolds, I'm withdrawing from the donor program. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes. His pen dropped onto the conference table with a small click that seemed unnaturally loud. Sarah, I need you to help me understand. Yesterday you seemed committed, and now. Yesterday I was still processing things. Now I'm not. What changed? Everything. The email. The conversation with Eleanor. The realization that even facing death, she couldn't bring herself to actually acknowledge what she'd done to me. I've decided that my reasons for donating weren't appropriate. Dr. Reynolds leaned back in his chair, studying me with the careful attention of someone trained to evaluate people in crisis. Can you elaborate on that? Dr. Vance asked me to make sure I could defend my decision to myself. I can't defend risking my health for someone who wouldn't risk a fraction of her wealth for my future. This is about money. This is about values. About what we owe the people who claim to love us. I finally sat down, feeling suddenly exhausted. Dr. Reynolds, what would you tell a patient who was considering a major surgery primarily out of guilt and family pressure? I'd tell them to wait until they were certain about their motivations. Then you should be relieved. I'm certain now. His phone buzzed with a message, and I saw him glance at it with obvious reluctance. Sarah, I just received word that your grandmother's condition has worsened significantly in the last hour. We may not have the luxury of waiting. What do you mean? I mean we're looking at emergency surgery today, or... He trailed off, the implication clear. Today. The timeline that had felt manageable yesterday was now compressed into hours. Eleanor was running out of time, and everyone would know it was because I'd said no. How long does she have? Hours, maybe less. Her body is shutting down. Dr. Reynolds leaned forward. Sarah, I need to ask you one more time. Is there anything that would change your mind? I thought about Eleanor's face that morning, the fear in her eyes when she realized what I was saying. I thought about my mother crying in the waiting room, about Michael flying across the world to thank me for a sacrifice I wasn't going to make. About all the nurses who thought I was heroic, all the family members who would hate me by tomorrow. Nothing would change my mind. Then I need to inform the family about the change in plans. He stood up, his professional composure intact but strain showing around his eyes. Sarah, I want you to know that I respect your autonomy in this decision. But I also want you to understand that there will be consequences beyond just your grandmother's outcome. What kind of consequences? Your family relationships. Your emotional well-being. The hospital staff who've been invested in this case. He paused. And there may be legal considerations. Legal? If your grandmother dies today, and it becomes known that you were a perfect match who chose not to donate, there could be questions. Investigations. Your motivations will be scrutinized. The weight of that hit me. This wouldn't be a quiet family matter. There would be records, reports, possibly media attention. The nurse who let her grandmother die rather than give up a kidney. Are you trying to scare me into changing my mind? I'm trying to make sure you understand the full scope of what you're deciding. Dr. Reynolds moved toward the door. I'll give you 30 more minutes to reconsider. After that, I have to inform your family and begin end-of-life protocols for your grandmother. 30 minutes. Half an hour to decide whether to save Eleanor's life or let the consequences of her own choices finally catch up with her. I sat alone in the conference room, watching the clock on the wall tick away the minutes. Through the window, I could see the controlled chaos of a hospital in motion, nurses rushing between rooms, families gathered in worried clusters, the endless dance of life and death playing out in sterile corridors. My phone rang. Eleanor's room number on the display. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sarah. Her voice was barely a whisper now, each word an obvious effort. They told me about your decision. Good. Then you understand. Please, don't do this. I'm begging you. Begging me to what? To figure it out. I closed my eyes. You taught me that people need to solve their own problems, remember? I was wrong. The admission came out broken, desperate. I was wrong about everything. Please, Sarah. I'll make it right. I'll pay off your loans, help you go back to school, whatever you want. Whatever I want. Now, with death at her door, she was finally willing to negotiate. It's too late for that, Grandma. It's never too late. We're family. Family helps each other before they're forced to. I opened my eyes, staring at the clock. 23 minutes left. I learned that from someone very wise. She told me that life doesn't hand you things on a silver platter. The line went quiet except for the sound of her labored breathing and the mechanical beeping of monitors. Sarah, she whispered finally. I love you. 3 words she'd never said to me before. 3 words that came only when she needed something from me. I know you do, Grandma. But love isn't enough anymore. I hung up and sat back in my chair, watching the clock count down the remaining minutes of Eleanor Martinez's life. 22 minutes and counting. The 22 minutes felt like hours. I sat in that conference room, my phone buzzing constantly with increasingly frantic messages. Michael texting from the elevator, asterisk almost there. Can't wait to see you before surgery, asterisk mom calling repeatedly, each voicemail more desperate than the last. Even my supervisor had texted, asterisk heard there might be complications. Here if you need support, asterisk. None of them knew yet. Dr. Reynolds was giving me the full 30 minutes before delivering the news that would shatter their faith in me forever. At the 15-minute mark, the conference room door burst open. Michael stood there, still wearing his rumpled travel clothes, his face flushed from running through the hospital. Sarah. Thank God you're here. He crossed the room and pulled me into a fierce hug before I could react. I can't believe this is happening. When I got Mom's call about Gran being worse, I thought, he pulled back, studying my face. Wait. You look terrible. Are you having second thoughts about the surgery? Second thoughts. If only it were that simple. Michael, sit down. Why? What's wrong? But he remained standing, that protective older cousin instinct kicking in. Sarah, whatever you're worried about, it's going to be okay. You're incredibly brave for doing this, and Gran is going to be fine. I'm not doing it. The words hit him like a physical blow. His mouth opened and closed silently, his face cycling through the same expressions Mom had shown earlier. What do you mean you're not doing it? I mean I've withdrawn from the donor program. The surgery isn't happening. But, he sank into a chair, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. But you're a perfect match. Dar. Reynolds said you were perfect. Perfect medical compatibility doesn't create moral obligation. Moral obligation? His voice cracked. Sarah, she's our grandmother. She raised us summers, taught us to swim in her pool, took us to expensive places while refusing to invest in our actual futures. I cut him off. Michael, she paid for your entire architecture degree. Did you know that? His face went pale. That was different. That was a graduation gift from Granddad's estate. Which she controlled. Which she chose to give you and not me. I watched the realization dawn on him. Did you think it was a coincidence that you got $50,000 for university while I got a card telling me to figure it out? I didn't know about your conversation with her. If I had. You would have what? Given me half. Refused the money. I leaned forward. Or would you have told yourself it was different, that you somehow deserved it more? Michael's silence was answer enough. He buried his face in his hands, and when he looked up, there were tears in his eyes. Okay, let's say you're right. Let's say she was unfair, even cruel. But Sarah, she's dying. Right now, today. You can save her life. She could have saved my life 7 years ago. My career, my dreams, my entire future. She chose not to. That's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. I stood up, checking the clock. 8 minutes left. She had the power to help someone she claimed to love, and she chose to let them suffer instead. Now she gets to experience that same choice from the other side. Michael stood too, blocking my path to the door. I won't let you do this. Sarah, this is murder. No, this is consequences. But his words hit harder than I expected. Was it murder? Was refusing to save someone the same as killing them? Fine. You want consequences. Let's talk about consequences. His voice turned hard, more serious than I'd ever heard him. If Gran dies today, this family will never forgive you. Mom will never recover from watching her mother die knowing you could have prevented it. And you, he pointed at me accusingly. You'll spend the rest of your life knowing you let someone die out of spite. Maybe. But I'll also spend it knowing I finally stopped letting people treat me like I don't matter. My phone rang. Dr. Reynolds. Time was up. Don't answer it, Michael said desperately. Please, Sarah. Give us more time to work this out. But I was already accepting the call. Dr. Reynolds. Sarah, it's time. What's your final decision? Through the conference room window, I could see a crowd gathering around Eleanor's room, nurses, my mother, what looked like a chaplain. All of them waiting for my answer. Michael was staring at me with desperate eyes, silently mouthing the word, please. My decision is. The words caught in my throat as alarms started blaring throughout the hospital wing. The alarms weren't coming from Eleanor's room. They were coming from somewhere down the hall, but the sound triggered immediate chaos. Medical staff rushed past the conference room window, and through the noise, I heard someone shouting about a code blue in room 320. Sarah. Dr. Reynolds' voice came through my phone, distant and urgent. I need to call you back. We have an emergency. The line went dead. Michael and I stood frozen, watching the organized pandemonium unfold through the glass. For a moment, Eleanor's crisis seemed suspended in time, overshadowed by someone else's life or death moment. This doesn't change anything, I said, more to myself than to Michael. But it did change something. Watching the medical team race to save a stranger while I actively chose not to save my own grandmother felt different. Darker. Michael's phone rang, Mom's contact photo filling his screen. Mom. He answered on speaker without thinking. We're still in the conference room with Michael, thank God. Something's wrong with Eleanor. Her blood pressure crashed and there, Mom's voice dissolved into sobs. The nurses won't tell me anything except that Dr. Reynolds is with another patient and, Michael, I think she's dying right now. I felt something cold twist in my stomach. Through the window, I could see increased activity around Eleanor's room. More machines being wheeled in, more staff members wearing the grim expressions that meant time was running out. Mom, we'll be right there, Michael said, his eyes never leaving mine. Sarah's here with me. Sarah. Mom's voice became desperate, hopeful. Sarah, honey, are you there? Please tell me you've changed your mind. Please tell me the surgery is still happening. I stared at the phone, unable to form words. The woman who'd raised me, who'd sacrificed her own comfort to help me through nursing school, who'd never asked me for anything except to save her mother's life. Sarah. Mom's voice cracked. Please say something. I'm here, Mom. The surgery. There is no surgery. The silence on the other end stretched until I wondered if the call had dropped. When Mom spoke again, her voice was barely recognizable. I don't understand. I withdrew from the donor program. I'm not giving Eleanor my kidney. The sound that came through the phone wasn't quite a scream, wasn't quite a sob. It was something more primal than that, the sound of a daughter watching her mother die while her own child chose to do nothing. How could you, she whispered. How could you do this to her? To me. The same way she did it to me 7 years ago. Sarah Elizabeth Martinez, you listen to me right now. But Michael had already ended the call, his face pale with shock. She hung up on Mom. Mom hung up on herself by enabling Eleanor's cruelty for years. Listen to yourself. Michael grabbed my shoulders. You sound like a psychopath. This isn't about fairness or justice or teaching anyone a lesson. This is about you being so angry that you're willing to let an old woman die. Old woman. As if Eleanor's age somehow erased everything she'd done. As if being elderly automatically made her a victim instead of someone finally facing consequences. Let go of me, Michael. Not until you explain to me how the Sarah who became a nurse to help people is the same Sarah who's refusing to help her own grandmother. Because the people I help in this hospital aren't the same people who crushed my dreams when I begged for help. Through the glass, I saw Dr. Reynolds approaching at a near run, his face grim. Behind him, my mother walked with the unsteady gait of someone in shock. They were coming for my final answer, and I could see in their expressions that Eleanor was running out of time for me to give it. Michael saw them too. Last chance, Sarah. They're here. I watched Dr. Reynolds reach for the door handle, knowing that whatever I said next would define the rest of my life. And I still wasn't sure what that would be. Dr. Reynolds entered the conference room with my mother close behind, both of them moving with the urgent energy of people carrying devastating news. Mom's eyes were red and swollen, her face a mask of grief and desperate hope. Sarah, Dr. Reynolds said without preamble, your grandmother has maybe an hour left. Her body is shutting down rapidly, and we need to make a decision about emergency surgery right now. Emergency surgery? Michael stood up. I thought you needed time to prep. We've been prepping for the possibility all morning. The OR is ready, the surgical team is standing by. But Sarah, I need you to understand, if we do this now, it's going to be extremely high risk for both of you. High risk. The words should have scared me, but instead they felt like another cosmic joke. After 7 years of Eleanor teaching me that life was about risk and struggle and figuring things out alone, now she needed me to risk everything to save her. Mom stepped forward, her voice hoarse from crying. Sarah, please. I'm begging you as your mother. Don't let her die like this. Like what? I asked. Alone. Scared. Feeling helpless while someone she needs refuses to help. I looked directly at her. You mean don't let her die the way she let me almost die academically and financially 7 years ago? That's completely different. It's exactly the same, Mom. The only difference is now you can see the consequences. Dr. Reynolds cleared his throat. I hate to interrupt, but we truly don't have time for this discussion. Sarah, I need a yes or no answer in the next 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 300 seconds to decide whether to be the bigger person or let Eleanor Martinez learn what figure it out really meant. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, asterisk this is Janet from the lab. Heard about your grandma's situation. You're in my prayers. What you're doing is so brave, asterisk. Then another from my apartment complex manager, asterisk Sarah, heard from a neighbor about your family emergency. Don't worry about rent if recovery takes longer than expected. You're doing something beautiful, asterisk. And another from Dr. Patricia Vance, asterisk Sarah, I've been thinking about our sessions. Whatever you decide, make sure it comes from your authentic self, not from pain or anger, asterisk. Authentic self. What was my authentic self? The compassionate nurse who dedicated her life to healing? Or the woman who'd spent 7 years carrying the weight of abandoned dreams? There's something else, Dr. Reynolds said quietly. Your grandmother asked me to give you this if you came to visit. He handed me a sealed envelope with my name written in Eleanor's shaky handwriting. She wrote me a letter. This morning, after your conversation. She insisted, even though she could barely hold the pen. Michael and Mom watched as I tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a single sheet of hospital stationery covered in Eleanor's labored script. Asterisk Sarah. You were right about everything. I was cruel and selfish and I destroyed your dreams because I was too proud to admit I was wrong about tough love. I've been wrong about so many things. I know I don't deserve your kidney. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I'm not asking for me anymore, I'm asking for your mother, who will blame herself for this forever if I die. I'm asking for Michael, who flew across the world believing his family loved each other. I'm asking for you, because I know the Sarah who chose nursing to help people will never forgive herself for letting someone die out of spite, even if that someone was me. I've already called my lawyer. Whether you save me or not, your loans will be paid off by tomorrow. Your medical school debt, gone. If you want to go back to school, I've set up a fund for that too. This isn't a bribe, it's what I should have done 7 years ago. Figure it out, you told me. So I did. I figured out that I was wrong, and that some mistakes can't be undone, only atoned for. Whatever you decide, I love you. I should have said that more. Grandma asterisk. The letter fluttered from my numb fingers to the conference room floor. Everyone stared at me, waiting for a reaction I couldn't give because I felt nothing and everything at once. She'd done it. Finally, actually done something. But only when her life depended on it. Sarah. Dr. Reynolds' voice seemed to come from very far away. We need an answer. I looked up at the faces surrounding me, Michael's desperate hope, Mom's raw grief, Dr. Reynolds' professional concern. All of them waiting for me to be the person they needed me to be. But for the first time in 7 years, I realized I had the power to choose exactly who that person would be. The silence in the conference room stretched until I could hear the second hand ticking on the wall clock. Everyone was staring at me, waiting for my response to Eleanor's letter, but all I could think about was the timing. 7 years too late. Even her apology came with conditions, asterisk whether you save me or not asterisk, as if she was still trying to maintain some control over the situation she'd created. The loans, I said finally, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. She's paying them off whether I donate or not. Dr. Reynolds nodded. According to what she told me, the paperwork was already in motion before she wrote the letter. So this isn't actually about making amends, I continued, the pieces clicking into place. This is about buying absolution. She gets to feel magnanimous either way, either she saves my financial future and I save her life, or she saves my financial future and dies a martyr. Sarah, please, Mom started. No, wait. I need to understand this. I picked up the letter from the floor, scanning it again. She says this isn't a bribe, but what else do you call paying someone's debts right before asking them to risk their life for you? Michael stepped closer. Does it matter what you call it? Your loans will be gone. You could go back to medical school like you always wanted. Medical school. At 35, starting over again, competing with students a decade younger than me. The dream felt different now, tainted by the circumstances that made it possible. What if I don't want to go back to medical school? I asked. What if I've built a life as a nurse that I'm proud of, despite everything she put me through? Dr. Reynolds checked his watch. Sarah, I'm sorry, but your grandmother's condition is deteriorating rapidly. We need to move to the OR in the next 10 minutes or. Alarms started blaring again, but this time they were coming from Eleanor's room. Through the conference room window, I could see nurses rushing in with a crash cart. She's coding, Dr. Reynolds said, already moving toward the door. Sarah, if we're going to do this, it has to be right now. Mom grabbed my arm as Dr. Reynolds rushed out. Sarah, she's dying. Right now. Please. I could hear the commotion from Eleanor's room, urgent voices, the high-pitched whine of defibrillator charging, someone calling out medication dosages. The organized chaos of a medical team fighting death. They might get her back, Michael said desperately. But if they do, she'll be even weaker. The surgery will be even more dangerous. More dangerous. For both of us, Dr. Reynolds had said. I could die trying to save someone who'd spent years proving she didn't value my life enough to write a check. My phone rang, Dr. Vance calling. Sarah. I heard about the emergency. Are you okay? I don't know. The honest answer surprised me. She wrote me a letter. An apology. She's paying off my loans. How does that make you feel? Manipulated. Like even her redemption arc has to center her as the generous benefactor. I watched the medical team through the window, fighting to restart Eleanor's heart. But also, guilty. What if I'm wrong about her motivations? What if she really has changed? Sarah, listen to me carefully. Whatever you decide, it has to be something you can live with for the rest of your life. Not something that makes other people happy, not something that looks good to observers. Something you can defend to yourself at 3 in the morning 20 years from now. 3 in the morning 20 years from now. When I was old enough to be facing my own mortality, would I remember this moment as the day I chose compassion over revenge, or the day I finally stood up for myself? They got her back, Mom whispered, watching the monitors in Eleanor's room stabilize. Her heart's beating again. Beating, but barely. Running on borrowed time that I could extend or let expire. Sarah, Dr. Vance continued through the phone, whatever you choose it consciously. Don't let it just happen to you. Choose consciously. I looked around the room one more time, at Michael's pleading expression, at Mom's tear-streaked face, at the letter promising financial freedom in exchange for physical risk. Eleanor Martinez had finally figured it out, just like I'd told her to. Now I had to figure out what to do about it. Dr. Vance, I said into the phone, watching Eleanor's heart monitor beep steadily through the window. I need to ask you something. If someone spent years teaching you that love has conditions, that help must be earned, that family only matters when it's convenient, what do you owe that person when they're dying? I can't answer that for you, Sarah. But I can tell you that the healthiest people I know are the ones who break cycles instead of perpetuating them. Break cycles. I thought about Eleanor's letter, about the money she was finally offering, about the desperate hope in my mother's eyes. About all the nurses who thought I was a hero and all the family members who would hate me by nightfall. I have to go, I told Dr. Vance, hanging up. The activity in Eleanor's room was settling into a new rhythm, the frantic energy of resuscitation giving way to the careful monitoring of someone balanced on the edge between life and death. Dr. Reynolds appeared in the doorway, his surgical scrubs already on. Sarah, we have maybe a 30-minute window while she's stable enough for surgery. After that. I looked at my mother, who was gripping Michael's hand like a lifeline. At Eleanor's letter on the floor. At the monitors showing a heartbeat that would stop without my intervention. If I do this, I said slowly, I need everyone to understand something. I'm not doing it because I forgive her. I'm not doing it because family obligations trump everything else. I'm not even doing it because of the money. Then why? Michael asked. Because Dr. Vance is right. Someone needs to break the cycle. I picked up Eleanor's letter, folded it carefully, and put it in my pocket. Eleanor taught me that love has conditions, that help must be earned, that people should figure things out alone. But I'm not Eleanor. Mom started crying again, but this time with relief. Sarah. I'm not finished. I held up my hand. I'm doing this because I refuse to become the kind of person who lets someone die to prove a point. Even if that someone deserves it. Even if it would feel satisfying. Because that's not who I want to be. Dr. Reynolds stepped forward. Sarah, are you consenting to be Eleanor's kidney donor? I took one last look through the window at Eleanor's room, where machines were keeping alive a woman who'd caused me years of pain and was now offering me everything I'd once wanted in exchange for everything I had to give. Yes, I said. But Dr. Reynolds. After the surgery, after she recovers, I'm done. No relationship repair, no family bonding, no pretending this makes us even. I'm saving her life because it's the right thing to do, not because I owe it to her. Understood, he said, already moving toward the door. Let's prep you for surgery. As the medical team swept me into the controlled chaos of preoperative preparation, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 7 years, peace with my decision. Not because Eleanor deserved my kidney, but because I deserved to be the kind of person who could give it anyway. Figure it out, I thought as the anesthesia began to take hold. I finally figured out how to be better than the person who raised me. The last thing I remembered before the darkness was Eleanor's letter in my pocket, and the knowledge that tomorrow, whatever happened between us, I would wake up as someone who chose compassion over revenge. Even when revenge would have been easier.